The seminar speech.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank my very gracious and kind host for this invitation and opportunity to speak to you. I think you are all, am I right to say you are all from sociology? Yeah. So there are so many issues to discuss regarding sociology, and you are familiar with discussions and debates about decolonization of sociology. So it's a very broad topic, and let me try to give you an overview of the problem. When we speak about decolonizing sociology and social sciences in general, we are suggesting that there is something problematic about sociology as it exists today, mainstream sociology. That problem is that sociology is colonial in nature. Another way to say it is that it is Eurocentric in nature. Now what we mean by being colonial in nature or Eurocentric in nature is that it takes a colonial or European perspective which is biased. And it's biased in different ways. And I'll give you three characteristics to show this bias. One is that Eurocentric or colonial knowledge is based on a false universalism. Let me give you an example of that. Do you know what happened in 1492?
Yeah.
What happened?
Columbus.
Okay. And how do you talk about this in Bangladesh?
We never.
He discovered
Exactly. So even in Bengali, you use the term discovery of America. Yeah. So this is an example of false universalism. Why? Because the European experience is generalized as a humanities experience, as if nobody knew of America until Columbus went there. Columbus is the first human being. So we say the discovery of America. Yeah? Like the landing of on the moon. The first time a human being stepped on the moon. That is correct to say. Right? But this is not, in the case of a discovery of America, it's not correct to say, to refer to this as the discovery of America. It should be referred to as the European discovery of America. Why? Because there's evidence that, for example, Africans already knew about America, and more importantly, there are already people in America. Right? So how can you say discovery of America? There are already people there. But so this is one characteristic of Eurocentrism, false universalism. Now, another example of this false universalism, 30 years after Columbus went to America, Ferdinand Magellan went around the world. He left Spain in 1519 and he arrived in Malacca, in the Philippines, what is called the Philippines now, in 1521. So he went, almost a complete circle. Now, in many countries, every few hundred years, for example, 2019 to 2021, there were commemorations around the world, commemorating and even celebrating Magellan's voyage as a great achievement. Now again here, you have a false universalism. this was a great achievement for the Europeans. It was not a great achievement from the point of view of people of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Why? Because between Columbus' discovery or conquest of America in 1492 and Magellan's arrival in the Philippines in 1521, when Magellan went around the whole world, during those 30 years, this is when the Europeans learned of the whole world. When Columbus arrived, when Magellan arrived in the Philippines, by then, after having gone around the world, it means that the Europeans have learnt of the whole world, which is a disaster for us, because it prepared the way for almost total colonization. So, a indigenous person living in South Asia, or living in the Philippines, or living in Argentina, will not be celebrating this circumnavigation of the globe. We would prefer that Magellan never found the route around the world, so that the Europeans do not know about most of the world, so that they will not colonize us. But yet today, we are celebrating, along with the Americans and the British and the Spaniards, we are celebrating, commemorating Magellan's voyage. This is a false universalism. Right? Now, why is it that we believe that Columbus discovered America? It's partly because of the second characteristic of Eurocentrism, which is distortion of reality. The Spaniards made themselves believe that they discovered America because they were saying that the people in America are not really human beings. Really, they were saying that. There was a debate in the Catholic Church in Spain in the mid 16th century about whether Native Americans are fully human, even whether they have souls. One group among the Spaniards, among the Catholics even, this was actually a debate in the Catholic Church. One group said that they have no souls, they are not fully human, and therefore it is permissible by Catholic teachings to enslave them. This was actually a debate. There was another group which said that they were human beings, but they have the wrong religion and should be converted to Christianity. So you have this attitude that not Native Americans were not human, and this is a distortion. Of course, this is a distortion, right? And in colonial knowledge is full of distortions of non-white people or non-Europeans. They believed that the people of Africa and Asia were inherently, genetically, biologically lazy people, less intelligent, and so on and so forth. They believed in the racial hierarchy of humanity. So this is also a characteristic of Eurocentric knowledge. Now the third characteristic, which is still affecting us till today, is silencing of non-Western, non-European voices. The silencing began because they believed that the non-Europeans were not civilized to begin with. They did not have sophisticated political systems, political theory, religion, and so on and so forth. So there's no question of seriously studying their knowledge systems and promoting their knowledge systems, the knowledge systems of non-Europeans. Now this problem is still with us today. You have all studied sociological theory, classical sociological theory. Who are the founders of sociology? The usual, right?
The canon.
Durkheim, Marx, Weber, and so on. You study Zimmel and Tocqueville and so on? Yeah. So, in the 19th century, sociology emerged because there were some people who were systematically studying society. Correct? Okay. Can we say that only men are capable of systematically studying society? Then how come there are no women founders of sociology? You said Marx, Weber, Durkheim. Where are the women?
Harriet Martineau. Harriet Martineau. She translated
Martineau.
the quote, Martinez.
Okay. But in your textbooks, usually there's no mention of women. Okay? Now, were there any non-white people who systematically thought about society in the 19th century?
Khaldun was mentioned for a long time in Bangladesh.
Yeah, that's right.
In Bangladesh.
That's right.
But they don't know.
No. In Bangladesh, in old days, even 70s, I know.
Yeah.
In our syllabus, Khaldun, Qaitullah, all are there.
Yeah.
So there are some variations,
Of course. Yeah. I know that. In fact, I looked at Indian syllabus also.
Yeah.
For sociology, even Khaldun is also mentioned.
Yeah.
But generally, in your textbooks,
Khaldun even has a big book, Bangla Academy, the national published, institution, they publish number of volumes on Khaldun.
on Khaldun. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But in your textbooks,
It's not there.
You are not.
Not in the mainstream.
You are not.
These people don't know.
They're not in the mainstream. They're not in the textbooks, right? And what about people in the 19th century in South Asia, in Africa, Latin America, who were thinking about society? Right? We don't know about them. So we cannot assume that there were not people. There were, but they are marginalized or silenced. So this is the problem, right? And the textbooks on sociological theory and sociology in general, introduction to sociology, are generally written by Americans and British, right? The ones you use here in your classes, American or British?
Anthony Giddens, Schaeffer.
Anthony Giddens, exactly. Yeah, and
Schaeffer.
George Witzer,
Yeah.
sociological theory.
There is a quite evolution on that. It started with Baltimore. And ended up with Giddens.
Started with Baltimore.
Yeah, it started with Baltimore.
Yeah.
And Koenig was there.
Yes.
Koenig
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah. Okay. So now the problem is when you marginalize or silence non-Western thinkers, at the same time you are marginalizing or silencing non-Western concepts. Yeah? Many Western concepts are useful and relevant. We don't deny that. But some are not relevant. And whatever it is, whether Western concepts are relevant or not, why do you silence concepts from your own intellectual tradition? Right? Let me give you an example. I was just discussing with Professor... No.
Oh, I should myself.
Yeah.
Anisur Rahman.
Anisur Rahman, yeah. Professor Anisur Rahman, we were just discussing about his research on violence against men. Yeah. And I told him we must uprise against women who oppress us. Okay. Now there is a phenomenon of men. I'm not speaking about women's violence against men. I'm speaking about men who feel inferior to their wives.
They always do.
No, but this, of course, this is a joke, right? Some men like to claim that, right? But I'm talking about a serious, real experiences of men who feel inferior to their wives, who feel psychologically dominated. Yes. Now, in English, this phenomenon in popular discourse is referred to as henpecked husband, right? Do you have a term in Bengali for this?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Like house husband. Something like
okay, but it's not just a man who stays at home. There are many men who have no. identity issue or problem, but they like to stay at home, and they prefer it, and sometimes they do it because they want to help their wives and so on and so forth. But I'm talking about men who feel inferior, psychologically dominated, meek, and so on. Right? Now, I know in Turkey there is a term that is used to describe such men. The term is kalabak. In Iran, zanzalil is the term used for this phenomenon. But what is interesting is, zanzalil is a term used in daily language, and people joke about it. But there was an anthropologist who wanted to take it seriously. It's not something of a joke. It's a serious phenomenon, a serious sociological phenomenon. And what he did was to take that term zanzalil from popular discourse and make it into a concept in the sociology of he was an anthropologist, so it was a sort of anthropology of couples, relations between man and wife. So he took a term from popular discourse and made it into an anthropological, sociological concept, and did fieldwork to study the experience of such men. Right? So my point is this, that we must take all our languages, Bengali, Urdu, Persian, Arabic, Malay, all these languages must be taken as possible sources of ideas and concepts. But if our mentality is to merely translate from English, American and English works to Bengali, then we are just using our language for translation and not as a source of concept formation and theory building. So this is the danger of silencing. So silencing is a major problem in the Eurocentrism or the Eurocentricity of knowledge, and we have to correct that silencing, and that is what decolonization of knowledge means. Right? Okay, follow me so far? Any questions or comments at this point? Yeah?
No,
Later.
I mean, if anybody has a
No, in case there's something you need to clarify. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. But if you have any need for clarification, just stop me along the way. All right. So now let me give you.
So you identify, if I may interrupt, you just identify one of the major problems, that is universalism. Can you add on that? Apart from universalism, the problems with Western knowledge?
There are three. I've mentioned three.
Three criteria of universalism.
Three traits of Eurocentrism: false universalism, distortion of reality, and silencing. Yeah, but in my work, I have actually identified, I think, 10 or 11 traits: subject-object dichotomy, nativism, imposition of Western concepts. I can't remember all of them, but I've identified about 10. But I just mentioned three here. Maybe for me, these are the most important. Yeah. So, when we talk about decolonizing knowledge, there are two dimensions to it. One is anti-colonial, anti-Eurocentric thought, where we identify the characteristics of Eurocentrism, like universalism, silencing and distortion. We identify it, we expose it, and so we discuss it. For example, what do we mean by silencing? How is it manifested? What do we mean by false universalism? What are the examples of it, and so on. So it is a critical part of decolonizing knowledge. The critical part. Now, this critical part of decolonizing knowledge, identifying anti-colonial thought, is not a small matter. Why is it not a small matter? Because we have 500 years of colonialism. From 1492, 500 years of European colonialism. From 1492 until today, it's still going on. Maybe Bangladesh India, Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia, all these countries achieved independence many decades ago, but there are still some colonies. Maybe the most covered in the news colony is what? What is the most famous colonial state today?
Israel.
Infamous. Huh?
Israel.
Israel is a colonial state?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Settler colonialism. Right? But there are many others. Unfortunately, the media doesn't cover them. Puerto Rico is an American possession. Falkland Islands is colonized by the British. Some even will say Hawaii. Yeah? And then you have cases of, okay, so you get the picture, right? So 500 years of
Please don't forget Sikkim and Tibet.
Kashmir. I was going to mention Kashmir. I was going to come to that example also.
Not Kashmir, Sikkim and Tibet.
Yes, yeah. Tibet in China, Xinjiang, Eastern Turkestan in China, many examples. So, 500 years of colonialism, meaning there is 500 years of anti-colonial thought. And there are different types of anti-colonial thought depending on the type of colonialism. Because you have settler colonialism, internal colonialism, semi-colonialism, what else? Extractive colonialism, plantation colonialism, different types. And each type of colonialism yields a different type of anti-colonial thought. In plantation colonialism, the criticism is mainly against economic exploitation. Whereas in settler colonialism, the anti-colonial thought is mainly against genocide, ethnic cleansing, and so on and so forth, dispossession, and so on, right? Semi-colonialism is another form of colonialism. China was a semi-colony. It ruled and controlled from the outside. The Europeans don't come inside, right? So there are different kinds of colonialism which yield different types of anti-colonial thought. There are also different types of anti-colonial thought based on who is doing the critique. For example, today we live after independence, but we are looking at the past and critiquing colonialism. You know, for example, when subaltern studies people, they are living today in post-colonial India, but they are critiquing what happened in the colonial period. But there's also anti-colonial thought happening during the colonial period by people who are still colonized. There is also anti-colonial thought by the colonizer. You see, the people from the colonizing society, but who are against colonialism or critical of colonialism. And we have many examples of that. So, it's already a big job to document the history of anti-colonial thought in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, and it's the types of anti-colonial thought and so on. That's already a big job, and we haven't begun to do that. You know, we've hardly begun to do that, and that's something which we can think of as a project. You know, yeah. Also, an opportunity for me to come back to Dhaka. So you have the critique. That's one dimension of decolonization. Now, after you do the critique, the other dimension of decolonization is to create new knowledge. So first you are critiquing colonial Eurocentric knowledge. Then we want to create new knowledge which is not Eurocentric, which is not colonial. So you have the critique, and then you have what I call construction, meaning constructing new knowledge. Now this also is a bit elaborate or complicated. There are two kinds of construction. There is reconstruction and there is original construction. Right? Reconstruction and original construction. Now reconstruction means you are dealing with topics and themes, concepts, which are already there in Eurocentric scholarship, but you are giving reinterpretations. right? For example, in India, also in Bangladesh, there were debates about the nature of agriculture. Some people were saying, basically the European or the Eurocentric position was that feudalism and capitalism coexist in Indian and Bangladesh agriculture.
It's a Asiatic mode of production.
And some people also used Asiatic mode of production, exactly.
And that's a big debate.
Now, Hamza Alavi, who's written about the post-colonial state in India and in Pakistan and Bangladesh, also wrote a very long classic piece on colonial modes of production. So he's entering into the Eurocentric debate. The concepts are from Eurocentric discussions. Mode of production, feudal mode of production, capitalist mode of production, relations of production, all these things are already there. He's entering into it, but he is providing an alternative explanation. He's saying that it's not correct to say that there is a coexistence of feudalism and capitalism. What you have is something entirely new. And he calls it the colonial mode of production. He gives his own arguments. I can't get into the details. Basically, he's saying that if we have coexistence, there should be domination of one mode over another. But in the case of India, he's saying that there's actually no evidence of domination. So actually it is not a coexistence of two modes of production, it is a new mode of production, which looks like it has elements of feudalism and capitalism. But no need to know the details. My point is, he is entering into an existing debate, but providing a reinterpretation based on the facts on the ground. Okay? You get the point? So this is what I call reconstruction. Now, original construction is where you begin from scratch with new knowledge. That means you may start with completely new themes which are not in the Western scholarship. New themes, new concepts, new ideas. For example, you mentioned about Zanzali, right? Or let's say I create a new sociology of state formation based on Ibn Khaldun, and I use that as the main theoretical framework to study the rise and decline of states. This is something from scratch. So this is what we can call original construction. Some of you have studied in your classes sociology of religion. Okay. What are the concepts in sociology of religion?
The concepts
About religion?
about religion.
Yeah.
Well, religion has a purpose, first of all, from the functionalist perspective. Religion regulates people's behavior.
Okay, no, fine. You're right about that, but just name me some words which are concepts that are used.
Beliefs, rituals.
Religion creating a false reality, if we're talking about.
No.
You're just talking theory, it's a
A
concept.
concept.
Concept. The rituals, beliefs, what is religion?
No, okay, sacred and profound is, for example, sacred and profound. Profane. Sacred and profane. Sect, denomination. What about church?
Sect, the secularization.
Huh?
Religiosity, secularization.
Okay, all right. Church, sect, denomination.
Yeah.
Okay. In your sociology of religion, in your textbook, you will notice all these concepts come from Christianity. But the chapter in your textbook is not sociology of Christianity, sociology of religion. So how come the concepts to study all religions come from one religion? It's very strange. A proper sociology of religion should draw its concepts from all religions. Right? But yet, we speak about Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism using concepts from Christianity. We talk about sect, for example, right? We talk about denomination and sect when we talk about Sunni Islam or Shia Islam. Yeah. It is, and we don't find it strange. But imagine if you went to the UK and you gave a talk on Christianity, and you don't use concepts from Christianity. You use concepts from Islam. So you talk about the Catholic madhab. You talk about the Franciscan tariqah. See, people will laugh at you. In fact, they will never. The British will never invite you to talk about this because they say you don't even know the terminology. But yet, we are inviting them, to give keynote address in our conferences, and they are not bothering with our terminology, our concepts. So this is the problem. We have to, think differently. So this is an example of original construction. Imagine if we make a sociology of religion based on concepts from other religious traditions, including our own, including Islam, and other non-Western religious traditions. Yeah? I'll give you an example of another example of original construction. Ali Shariati came up with this concept of istihmar. Istihmar, it's an Arabic word and also a Persian word. It comes from the word himar. Himar means donkey. Okay? So istihmar means being in a state of donkeyification. Donkeyfied. Made stupid. Right? Now he wasn't joking. Although it sounds funny, but for him he was not joking. He was explaining how donkeyification is an element, an aspect of the working of the dominant ideology. He was critiquing the religious elite during the time of the Shah of Iran, the religious elite who, in trying to have hegemony or domination over the thoughts of the masses, that part of the strategy is to donkeyify, to make the masses stupid, to remove the ability of the masses to reason. Because they did not, the religious elite did not want the masses to be able to critique them. Right? So he used this term istihmar. And he talked about istihmar and istibdad and istimar. Istibdad is oppression, istimar is colonization, and istihmar is donkeyification. So for oppression and colonization and donkeyification come together. Yeah? Very interesting, and it's about how ideology works. Right? So istihmar as an element in ideology. So here you have original theorizing. This is what I would call an example of original construction. Right? So you see, decolonizing sociology is an enormous task. It's a big task. Just talking about anti-colonial social thought is itself already, we are talking about 500 years, and maybe not in Bangladesh, but still, you have, how many years of colonization in Bangladesh? 200 years?
190.
190, almost 200 years, right? So, documenting anti-colonial thought in philosophy, in literature, in the arts, in the visual arts, in many areas, right? Is already a big task. And then doing the reconstruction and the original construction is also a big task. The problem with us is that we talk a lot about decolonizing knowledge, but we don't do it. It's like a chef. A chef, he talks a lot about his recipes. I can cook this, I can cook that, I should cook this, but he never cooks. That's what they're like, okay? So we should stop talking about decolonizing knowledge and start cooking. I think that's all for now. I'll be happy to have a discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Syed Farid Alatas, for your illuminating and thought-provoking lecture. Your insights have truly enriched our understanding of sociology in its global and decolonial dimensions. Dear audience, at this stage, I would request our program chair, Professor Dr. Muhammad Farid sir, Chairperson, Board of Trustees and former Vice Chancellor, ISROS University, to share his reflections with us.
কিছু প্রশ্ন উত্তর হবে না পরে হবে পরে
Thank you very much. After this mesmerizing presentation by Professor Syed Farid Alatas, I don't know what I will say, but I have also something to add to him and maybe even contradict him. Singapore, Malaysia, Syed Alatas, Sociology, Bangladesh is quite a chain. You know, normally we hear that divided we fall. But we have an example when in 1963 Malaysia and Singapore decided to part their ways, and lo and behold, both of them are getting stronger and stronger. So divided, they gathered strength. So the proverbs are not always to be taken without a grain of salt. I studied science and I studied economics. So I'm not supposed to have a lot of love for sociology, but believe me, I have. Two reasons, two basic reasons. When I was still in the secondary school, I was asked by a mentor to study a novel called Gora by Rabindranath, and also to study Protestant ethics and rise of capitalism. Yeah. So I do claim, and my teacher said that I was a brilliant student. So I have been able to get a lot of sense from these two very difficult books. About that time, in the University of Dhaka, which is my alma mater, we're very proud of that, Professor Syed and great Professor Nazmul Khalid opened Sociology department in 1957, ahead of many other disciplines. So sociology had a very strong rooting in Bangladesh. Talking about decolonization, we have Rabindranath Tagore, who says, বণিকের মানদণ্ড দেখা দিল রাজদণ্ড রূপে. When the British started cheating us too much, he did two things. He denounced his knighthood following the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and he advised the Congress that don't have any hobnobbing with the British. Put pressure on them, and they'll leave sooner than you think. But the Congress, of course, was created by an Englishman, Congress party, so they did not listen. So since then, since the creation of Sociology department in the University of Dhaka, I had keen interest on the subject. But when I started studying economics in the year 1960 in the University of Dhaka, 1960, honors in economics study. I had some great professors, and I learned from that economic growth and development is not the monopoly of the economists. economic growth, economic development, these can be more firmly studied and practiced if sociological principles, sociological thoughts are embedded in the economic theory and economic development. Since then, I have tried to do this in whatever I do, including the establishment of East West University with the help of other people. And I'm very glad that the department has come very strong, very dynamic as a thinking force in social, economic and cultural development of the country. I give my deep respect to Professor Manna and her colleagues for catapulting sociology department into a very strong phenomenon in national development. To the faculty members of sociology, with all respect to all of you, as the professor has indicated, not quite directly, I think all of you, please go back to the original books of sociology, to the preliminary thinking. I mean, it is easy to start at the middle point and learn a little bit, but I urge you to go to the fundamentals of sociology. Then only you will understand the social forces, the strength of family, how the British had tried to divide us to lengthen the rule of India. But then you should also know, I think most of you know, that চিনতে যদি না পারো না গো দেখবে গলায় ফাঁসি কে বলেছে এটা? Anybody knows? So this is the problem. Khudiram. Teenager. He was being taken to the gallows and he told mother India, that if you cannot recognize your son, you see there is rope around his neck. You should know that Haji Muhammad Moshid, you should know that Titumir created the Bashar Kalla. You should know that Pritilata Vandana shot at the district magistrate of Chittagong in 1931. So the reason I'm saying all these things, these are not very pleasant. Saying all this is that, okay, I'll refer to another professor of mine. I think he is the most purist Marxist in Bangladesh, Professor Abu Mahmoud, my professor. He would say that look, your economic theory, you give allowance to machines, depreciation, but you have no allowance for the labor. So when he went to Harvard to study economics, one of the first lectures he gave was that the British had colonized it, but in 1776 you drove them out and you started, imperial colonization, unseen colonization. So you cheated the British cheated us, and you cheated British. So that is my economics. He started like this, and he took 12 years to get his degree, but he did get it. Harvard had some, principles. It is important that the professor has mentioned about men's inferiority, women. Go to the Philippines, even go to the Thailand, you'll see men are at home, gossiping, drinking, and the women are earning the bread. I hope many of you know this. I've not learned it from books, I've seen it myself. Because I work.
Even close to our having Garos and
Yeah.
Kashiyas,
Yeah.
you know, Chakmas, Horus.
Okay, so I served in the UN as the UN head in the Philippines for 5 years. So I've seen here in Bangladesh we have 2 Garo ladies working for us for 24 years. And their men and their sons don't do anything. So I mean that's why I said that fundamentals of sociology, but must be studied to envision the knowledge. I must conclude by saying that talks like this, seminars like this will provoke ourselves to make further inquiries into the human relations, into the origins of man, society, family, how they have evolved. This will also help us to understand why in the 16th and 17th centuries the British, the Europeans found out mercantilism and occupied practically the entire world. But it is also important to note that in the middle of the 20th century, practically all Asian countries shut up their colonialism. It was not without force being applied to the colonizer. They felt the heat. They felt that they were not able to sustain anymore. So in our case, the British took the Kohinoor model and quietly went away in 1947. I would like to thank Sociology Department for arranging this very enlightening seminar, but my heartfelt, warm and respectful congratulations Professor Syed, Farid, Alatas for coming and talking to us today. I hope we'll see him more. In Bangladesh, the word Farid is seen as a victory. So you are victorious today, and I hope you'll come back to us timely. Thank you very much.
I would like to request our Honorable Treasurer, sir, to share his views with us. Okay, I'd like to